right? And then government has to get involved and try and monitor the economy to make sure that the entire nation is directed towards supporting the war effort. So the government creates what's referred to, or an organization referred to as the War Industries Board, right? And that simply controlled the economy during a time of war to make sure that adequate supplies were being produced, that prices were being stable. There wasn't businesses that were trying to make money off of the war, by raising prices, things like that. And they also controlled wages. So to try and keep workers working and working hard, okay, the government would try and raise prices a little bit during a time of war as an incentive for workers to continue to work well, right? And then on the flip side of that, the government also tried to make sure they rallied citizen support, meaning they tried to make sure that people always supported the war effort. So I had asked you guys earlier in the chapter, right, on your introduction days, how many of you remember the Uncle Sam poster where he's pointing and saying, "I want you," right? That comes directly from World War I, and then it kind of becomes something that comes back in World War II. Okay, the idea here is by supporting the war, you're being patriotic, you're supporting the country. So help Uncle Sam stomp out the Kaiser. The Kaiser was the leader of Germany. Okay, beat back the Hun with Liberty Bonds. Okay, Huns were a cultural group that originated in Germany. So the idea here was to get the people to support the war. All right, and then the last part we're going to look at is how the government attempts to monitor the people who are criticizing the war effort. So by these two laws, the Espionage Act and the Sedition Act, okay, espionage simply is a fancy word for spying, and sedition is a fancy word for being a traitor or for treason. Right? So the government implemented these two laws simply to try and curb anti-war activities, meaning they didn't want people out protesting the war. They felt that everybody should be supportive of the war effort. Okay, and then during this time, people were complaining about freedom of speech, things like that. But at the time, the government was focused on the war, and they couldn't allow any dangerous activities at home. So they felt that it was okay to restrict the freedom of speech. Right, famous Supreme Court case, Sect versus United States. Now this probably would interest some of you guys because it's funny how many middle schoolers sometimes feel that they can say whatever they want and then they can claim freedom of speech, First Amendment, things like that. But this was an important case. It's pronounced Sect versus United States. Sect was his last name. Okay, he was arrested. He was passing out anti-war flyers trying to convince people not to sign up for the Selective Service Act. And he claimed that he was protected by his freedom of speech. Right, he was allowed to say whatever he wanted against the government, and the Supreme Court actually ruled against him. They said that your freedom of speech can be limited in a time of war because it can create a clear and present danger. And the classic example that socialist teachers always throw out is yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. Right? If there's no fire and you yell there's a fire in a crowded movie theater, you can cause an awful lot of physical harm because people are going to be rushing to get out of the movie theater. So your freedom of speech does not protect that. A more modern example would be to say, there's a bomb on an airplane. Right? Your freedom of speech is not protected in that point because you're putting other people's physical well-being in danger. Right, this poster down here says a careless word, a needless sinking, meaning people who were, whether it's talking to the enemy or who were spying or simply just, carried out or released classified information, right, could lead to needless loss of American lives. All right, and then please hit pause. We got the second one here. How did American civilians contribute to the war effort? So think about ways that non-military personnel were able to contribute to the war effort.